Hey guys, Bike here, and I'm back again with another Last Epoch build guide video. You guys asked for it, and I tested it out. This is the Forge Guard Master Yi build, or Master Yi Forge Guard build. If you come by the live streams, you see me doing some crazy numbers with this guy. And yeah, this is the truth. This is better than the Paladin build. Oh my gosh, this is better than the Paladin build. And I didn't really change a whole lot. Right, it's mostly just kind of facelifted over with just some of the Forge Guard skills, but I tried to keep it pretty similar to what I did on Paladin, obviously minus Holy Aura and some other stuff, but just what you're able to squeeze out with Forge Guard, oh my gosh, it's so much better. We pushed this to 834 corruption. Yeah. And I probably could have kept going, but I was starting to run into the territory of, even with all my armor and resistances and everything the Forge Guard gets, it was starting to get a little rough. But still, a life-based melee build that I was able to push to 800 plus corruption, I feel pretty good about that. And we're not even level 100 yet. But I'm making this video because I feel like it is complete. I am ready to move on to the Void Knight version. The only thing I didn't do was take on Aberoth. Mostly because it was kind of a tough fight to begin with. This is not really a build that I would recommend for Aberoth unless you have some sort of like cheese or melee kill threshold or something that you're able to bake in, because it was a little rough last time on Paladin, and I didn't even bother on Forge Guard. This is not the kind of build that I'm going to fire up and be like, let's go fight Aberoth. But with all that out the way, let's jump into it. But real quick, if you're just here for the build, link in the description down below to a Last Epoch build planner. It'll have all the gear, it'll have all the skills, everything that I took, everything that I worked out with the community, ish. And yeah, so thank you very much. Possibly like, possibly subscribe if you like Last Epoch content. You know, I'm still carrying the torch for this game, hopefully in January or February or March, because we don't know. We'll get a substantial update. And yeah, let's jump into it. All right, guys, gameplay. So this build is actually pretty satisfying to run around monos with. You got good speed, you got good mobility, and you do damage while moving. Mostly. I mean, you will have to stand there and just whack a doodle away. But then you do a void cleave and everything dies. It's very satisfying to do that. I like just traveling pack to pack to pack, go to the objective, take it out. There you go. One thing that I would recommend on this build is a cleanse. I do not have cleanse on this build. I'm just face tanking everything. And yeah, so if you can get cleanse on your belt, I would recommend it. But nonetheless, we're just able to move from pack to pack, good mobility. We get 2 charges of void cleave with the dark stride boots, and you're able to just mostly one-shot enemies with no more multipliers going on. And then when you get to the tougher enemies, whack-a-doodle, bam. I will say there's a good fair bit of combos that has to go into it. We'll cover that when we get into the training area. But it's a lot of just stacking a bunch of more multipliers and then unleashing a barrage of pain. So yeah, I recommend this build for just clearing through monoliths. Let's get into some bosses. I went to my age-old classic, Rye and the Harbinger. So I actually had some trouble with these guys at 834 corruption when I was recording the footage earlier. I would die because they are just doing so much damage at this point. I would just die to random hits. Also, with this boss in particular, with Rye, if you stun him, which is actually something that we can do, we can actually stun. We do just so much damage. One point, I hit for over 1 million on Rye. Impressive, I know. And it stunned him, and it interrupted what he was doing. But the thing is, what he was doing kept happening, right? Like, it kept happening. Like, the little circle motion kept happening, and then he went into something else while the other thing is still happening, which would make it harder. So I don't know if that's going to be the case for every boss, but for Rye, it was definitely the case. I died a couple times trying to get through him to get to the Harbinger. But nonetheless, Rye went down. Then we got to the Harbinger. Harbinger is pretty much your standard Harbinger fight. He's doing a lot of damage. He's pretty tanky. I think we hit him for over 1 million at one point as well. That's not constant damage that we're doing. Like, we're not constantly hitting for 1 mil per void cleave, but he was another tough fight. Died a couple times to him as well. It could have been the modifier. I noticed I had 15% more damage and movement speed, but nonetheless, we were able to get through him as well. And yeah, that is the build. It does all right with bossing. It does okay against Orbis. I just think that there's just a lot of damage numbers, and sometimes the bosses freak out. Nonetheless, let's get into the game. All right, so here we are at the training facility. I wanted to show you, before we go over the gear, what to expect. Because this build is a lot of combos to try and stack up that one big hit. So here's your first basic combo. Hitting the enemy to build up these stacks of armament. This is from the skill Multi-Strike. Right here. We're trying to build up 4 stacks of armament. We get 2 stacks here. We get 1 stack, and then 2 stacks base. 4 stacks. Right? Hit. Next, volatile reversal. Go. Right? That's over 7 million on the dummy. Now, of course, that's dummy damage, not actual damage. That's 9.5 million. So, you know, it's going to really depend, because if you notice, we're also trying to stack Doom, which we only have a 24% chance to apply. The reason why we want Doom is we get a more multiplier with Shattered Chains, 5% more. Well, it says more. I'm not exactly sure if that's a typo or if that's supposed to mean something, but I'm going to take it on the surface of 5% more melee damage per stack of Doom. All right. And since we're not using something like an Apathy's Maw, it's not 100% that you're going to always get that. And the damage, it certainly spikes, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense. We're stacking Bleed here to also proc Vorpal Force. And yeah, the damage I wish was a little bit more consistent. It really swings a little bit. Like, I can understand if you like make a mistake or something, you don't get all the procs off, but it looks like I'm getting all the procs off here. And still, we just did 6 mil, but now on the next one, we're going to do 9.6. Nonetheless, that is your basic how to proc all this stuff. So let's go over the gear real quick. I want to try and be quick about this because, like I said, I've already done a Paladin version. The gear hasn't really changed much. I did change around the way my idols work. I was trying to get more health and resistances than I was with the last one. So let's just go over it. For the helmet, we're using Leonides. This is our only form of reduced critical hits. So 84% reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. This one's strength, health. The attunement we don't really use, but nonetheless, it was a good roll on a helmet. So strength, attunement, health. You could opt for a Leonides with the same amount of reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes and then go for health. Just driving home that health. But as you guys can see right down here, I was having to make sure my face wasn't covering it. We have over 4,000 health, but you could squeeze more out of it. Nihilus, I believe this is what I was using on the last one as well. This is a great roll. You don't have to use this. You could also use something like an Oracle Amulet or an Omnis, but +2 to skills, armor, resistances, health, mana, movement speed. There's a lot in here, plus we got T6 health. Titanheart, if you guys had just seen, it's so great to have characters like this in Legacy now that's also bringing some of the gear I found from Seasons, because I don't know if you guys watched my last Beastmaster build, this Titanheart was prominently featured. This is something, if in case you didn't see, this is a Titanheart I put together in beta before factions existed. So I'm very proud of it, and it really fits in very nicely with a lot of these builds I've been doing in the cycles. And now that I'm in Legacy, because let's face it, there's not a lot going on in cycles right now, it's really great to see just a massive boost that this particular Titanheart could provide to my builds that I've been crafting over the various cycles. So I'm very happy about this one. 24 strength health. I would focus on getting health. Strength is important. Strength is very important. When we go over into the passive tree, you'll see we have a few skills that actually benefit from more strength. But if I had to choose one right now, what should I get? Can only choose one, T7 strength or T7 health. I'd probably lean health. At the same time, Titanheart does have a lot of increased health already on it, so your mileage may vary. Obviously, in this case, I lean T7 strength with 15% health. If you can get that, there you go. All right, Eternal Eclipse. This has changed. We actually put this together yesterday, thanks to the Nemesis. No, the Nemesis did not put those stats on there. The Nemesis finally gave me my very first ever 2 LP Eternal Eclipse after playing this game for more than 1,400 hours, after killing Raye what is probably 500 times. I don't know for sure. I finally got my first 2 LP Eternal Eclipse, and it came from the Nemesis, and I slammed it, and I got exactly what I wanted. Melee critical strike chance, 80% critical strike multiplier. This helped push my damage up. Before, with my old Eternal Eclipse, which was just melee critical strike chance on there, I wasn't hitting as high. I was getting into the 8 millions, right? 8 millions. But because of this, I was yesterday's stream, I was able to get into 10 million at one point. But like I said, the damage really swings up and down a lot. But because of this setup, it feels pretty good. So let's talk about Eternal Eclipse real quick. Right, in case you haven't seen the Paladin build version of this. I'm going to try and be very quick about it. Every 2 seconds, your next fire melee attack has plus 238 melee void damage, right? Yin and yang. It is the opposite of what is proccing it. Every 2 seconds, your next void melee attack has plus 230 melee fire damage. Again, yin and yang. So when you're attacking or something like this, and if I procced a fire attack, well, guess what? We'd see a little icon right over here, and it would show that I just did a whole bunch of flat melee void damage. Well, that's a little unfortunate because we're doing a fire attack. So you might be sitting here going, okay, well, you're using void cleave. That's void. Or you can convert it to fire. But you can convert void cleave to both fire and void at 50% scaling each. 50% void, 50% fire. Yin and yang. So when I proc it, if you look down here, it shows that it's on cooldown and that I just procced it. So what is happening is this fits in perfectly with Eternal Eclipse. Every 2 seconds when you use your next void or fire attack, in this case both, we're going to proc those flat damages. Now we get 50% of each, but let's just split the difference. That's roughly plus 233 flat melee damage, because obviously we don't get the full. We don't get 468 flat damage. We get half of that, but still, that's a massive amount of flat damage to get for free, plus 50%, plus 50 from the base. That's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage, chat. And we get 224% increased void and fire damage baked into the item, as well as resistances. I love this sword so much. It is also very frustrating because it is a specific boss drop to Raye. Yeah, that is the basic breakdown. It is because of Eternal Eclipse we're able to hit for some big numbers. Okay, Siphon of Anguish. stats that you would find desirable on here: health and critical strike chance if you need it. You just need a Siphon of Anguish. If you're just starting this build, my first Master Yi build, you don't even need melee critical strike chance or anything like that. Just get yourself an Eternal Eclipse, slap it in there, get yourself basics and take it. It'll work great, but you need the critical strike chance to make it worth it, if that makes sense. To be more consistent. It's already wildly inconsistent, and the critical strike chance just makes it just a little bit more consistent. Because, let me move my face. If we look over here, right? So we get base critical strike chance and critical strike chance, but we get 200% critical strike multiplier when we crit with Void Cleave on top of more damage, more damage, more damage. Yeah. Having the critical strike chance helps it a lot. I'm moving my face again. Okay, cool. So, let me move my face again. Sorry. So I've noticed, you can't see my mouse on here. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, may I direct your attention to melee critical strike chance on the sheet. You notice I don't have 100%. It's 63%. Thing is, with the bonuses that I get from Void Cleave, I'm able to deduce that somewhere around 60 to 70%, it's roughly 100% critical strike chance for Void Cleave. Roughly, with all the bonuses you have baked into it. So if on our sheet, we can get it to say 63%, it's going to be somewhere around there. That's just my dumb lizard brain saying that. So I've already spent way too much time here. We should be trying to get done with the gear. So take what you want on here. I took health, cold resistance, because I needed it. If you need it, critical strike chance, there you go. Shatter Chains. This is a very nice Shatter Chains. I'm still kind of bitter about the fact that I had a 3 LP and I couldn't get the cleanse on here. But health, void damage, those are all nice. I would highly recommend cleanse. I do have a Shatter Chains with cleanse on it, but it's hard to ignore all this health. Now, if we get to a point where I'm just getting absolutely face rocked, if I want to keep rocking this build and pushing over 1,000 corruption, I might have to use the Shatter Chains with cleanse, but that doesn't have any health or anything on there. So for right now, I'm using health. I will say this was a little bit easier on Paladin because they have Holy Aura, which could cleanse. There we go. Ivory Ring. This Ivory Ring, we get so much value out of it. We get necrotic resistance, we get strength, we get critical strike chance, we get poison resistance, we get health. Now, if you guys remember, on the Paladin build, I actually had a Minion Ring in this slot. Minion Ring. I'm gonna look at it, and it's forged weapon, Cradle of the Erased. No, it's I'm super embarrassed right now. Phantom Grips. Yes, that's what I meant. I had a pair of Phantom Grips. In fact, I think it was this Phantom Grip. Increased critical strike chance and health. The thing is, I was also playing Paladin, which is a lot easier to offload your resistances into the passive tree and pick up a bunch of resistances there. So I didn't have to worry about having something like an Ivory Ring. If you can afford it, you can try and make the Phantom Grips work, and then maybe you don't feel pressured to put as much critical strike chance into your build, trying to cram it in there. But like I said, because we're Forge Guard, it's actually pretty easy to get a lot of melee critical strike chance. All right, Ivory Rain, big pickup right here. Recommend critical strike chance if you need it. Strength, poison resistance, health, etc. Assassin's Eternal Gauntlets of the Giant. Main reason why I took this, chance to apply frailty and hybrid health. And the fact that it's Eternal Gauntlets, so we have 21% of armor mitigation, also applies to damage over time. It's a huge stat. This is the only source of it that we have right here. Now, you could use something like a Decayed Skull, but at the same time, Leonine's Helm is doing a lot of heavy lifting for us. So yeah. The only other way is if you have Code Inventory Sentinel, and like let's say you're able to get Void Cleave and health, slap it in there, maybe take the Blessing to give you endurance. But for right now, this is our only source of 21% of armor mitigation. Also applies to damage over time. I'm getting lost in the weeds here. Let's keep going. I said this is going to be quick. I'm long-winded. All right, Dark Stride. Movement speed is your friend here. You know, like we have 58% movement speed. Obviously, we're not stacking a lot of just flat void damage. The flat that we get from here never applies. It's not like we all of a sudden get a random boost of speed or anything like that. No. Our speed never goes up. So we never get the benefit here. The main reason why we take Dark Stride is the +1 charge for Void Cleave. And then Anchor of Oblivion. I love this relic. You get strength, you get armor, you get endurance, void damage. I happen to have +3 to Void Cleave and health on here. If you don't have an Anchor of Oblivion, see if you can get yourself a good Code of Array Sentinel. I do highly recommend +3 to Void Cleave, so any relic you can get in that slot, get that. And then the Blessing. Let's take a look at it. We'll go over this later, but the Blessing from this tree, from this timeline, you can take the Endurance Blessing to offload some of that. But Anchor of Oblivion, it just caps it for you. It's very nice. Okay, that's enough of the gear. I'm long-winded. Let's go over the idols. This is going to be real quick. All right, guys. Health. Resistance. I have one spare little one. I always put a Harbinger Needle in there. That is the idols. Let's talk about blessings. So take what you want, take what you want, take what you want, take what you want, take what you want. Let's talk about the more interesting stuff. Critical strike multiplier out of the Black Sun. If you really need it, you can get void resistance or shred void resistance. That could be interesting. I didn't mess around with it. I didn't think I'd be able to proc it a whole lot. But there are some nice little things you can take here. I do ultimately recommend Critical Strike Multiplier. Ending the Storm timeline, you can take a few different things. Mana, but I mean, at the end of the day, I say Lightning Resistance. Reign of Dragons. Now, this one, if you don't need it, you don't have to take Chance to Bleed on hit. But I am going to recommend Chance to Bleed on hit just because... Like, yes, we have a fast attack speed when we're attacking and we're trying to proc those bleed stacks. The thing is, I just like to try and apply as many as I can with as few hits as possible. That's why I take the Chance to Bleed. You can get up to 100% in this timeline. I got 99%. That is second best. You can farm for that. You could also take Resist All. That's very nice as well, but I do recommend Chance to Bleed on hit. If you're running the old school Critical Strike Avoidance route, you would also get that here, but Chance to Bleed on hit is what I recommend. All right, Spirits of Fire. I recommend armor, but the thing is, on Forge Guard, we have a ton of armor. We already have a ton of armor, and we get more. Like, if we get hit, we get armor. We use Forge Strike. We get armor. You know, we have a ton of armor as a Forge Guard. Excuse me. So you don't necessarily have to take this. Ones that you could take Chance to Shred Fire Resistance, right? Little yin and yang. Maybe get some more damage. Shred Void Resistance. Shred Fire Resistance. I didn't test it, but you could do that. You could also, I would probably recommend the most, if you're not running Anchor of Oblivion, get yourself the Endurance Blessing. Try and save those Avixes on your gear for more interesting stuff. Armor or Endurance or Chance to Shred Fire Resistance. That is what I recommend. That is the bike seal of approval out of the Spirits of Fire. Age of Winter, you could do Shred Physical Resistance. That would only... Man, imagine running triple shred. That would only affect your multi-strike, so I wouldn't recommend that. Percent armor, I think, is a good pickup. Then Last Ruin, take whatever you want. I hate this timeline. End of discussion. Let's get into the skills. So here we are at Void Cleave. So things that you're going to want to do. Try and get yourself a +3 to Void Cleave. Right? And then take stuff like recovery speed, put some points into Abyssal Walker to get Gravity's Edge. Make sure you put 1 point in Rift Flame, and I'm going to address this now because somebody might point it out. So Rift Flame is very interesting, right? It splits your damage, half void, half fire, right? Under Volpal Force, it says the effect is based on Ignite rather than Bleed if you have the Rift Flame node. Now you might be going, Bike, why are you stacking all of this Bleed? It is bugged. I have tested it. It was pointed out to me. I was like, wow, I'm not doing enough damage. Let's see what I do now. And then I realized I was doing less damage with Ignite. Now, a very astute person might notice that I'm also proccing Ignite in this case, but we're definitely proccing more Bleed. And we're getting the damages there. We're actually getting the damages there. Like I said, I have tested it, and I think it's bugged. It's still going off of Bleed. If they ever patch it, this build would change. Granted, this build's probably going to change a lot when they release the new content because not Forge Guard, Sentinel's getting some changes. I don't know if this build will still be viable. Maybe I should start off the video with it, but nonetheless, saying it now, I believe this node is bugged, and that's why we do less damage when we stack Ignite as opposed to Bleed. All right, so let me try and speed through here. More damage, more damage. This turns it into a traversal skill. Highly recommend Gravity's Edge. Highly recommend. Point in Precognition just to get crit, critical strike multiplier, and then you also gain mana back on crit. Cooldown reduction. Moving on. Okay, so Forge Strike, I knew what I wanted. I wanted to reduce armor, gain armor, more global damage bonus right here when you use Forge Strike, and more global damage fire pen or global fire penetration. I wanted these. As for the other points, I didn't really care. I didn't really test it to see if I wanted to go somewhere. I didn't care if I increased Forge Strike's base critical strike chance. I didn't really care about Forge Strike doing more damage. So I kind of just grabbed some cooldown recovery, Forged by Fire, and summoned some forged weapons just to distract the enemy. That's all I did with it. This is the one area I did not really mess around with. So your mileage may vary. Feel free to tinker. We love tinkerers around here. All right, this is pretty much a generic volatile reversal setup. If you're seeing this build in the future after the new update comes out, this is probably going to look way different. But for right now, key features are this one, and this one. Get these nodes, and that's where you're going to get a bunch of damage. This is for cooldown. And these give us some nice global attack speed and global move speed bonuses. Moving on. Okay, main things to look out for. Embrace the Darkness. Get a damage buff against blinded enemies. Myopia blinds enemies for you when you hit them with Abyssal Echoes. Abyssal Echoes goes out and it changes to different enemies. It's going to slow them, and you're going to do 80% more damage with Void Cleave to slowed enemies. And it slows enemies. This allows us to send it out further. Let's go over to multi-strike. So things to look out for. You're going to want at least a point here and a point here. You're going to want those two stacks. Do not take Fiery Justice. Do not. It will consume all your stacks of armament when you use... while at maximum stacks of armament and positive mana, attacking with multi-strike will consume all stacks and 40 mana to use Forge Strike. This is cool if you're doing a Forge Strike build. We're not doing a Forge Strike build. Right now, Forge Strike is a nice little buff. So this, do not take this. I know it may seem tempting because we have Forge Strike. You will be using all of your stacks when you're at max stacks, and you will never proc Nullifying Carve. So what we do here, Void Cleave consumes all stacks of armament to gain a multiplicative more damage bonus. Boom. 15% more damage per stack, 4 stacks, 15 times 4 is 60. Am I right? Yes, it's 60. I had to think about that for a second. 60% more damage. 80% more damage, up to 120% more damage, 40% more damage, 40% more damage, 12% more damage. See where I'm going with this? So after we grab those stacks, I dropped 5 points into here. While at max, per stack of armament, you gain a 25% bleed chance. So if you keep attacking after you hit 4 stacks, you get a little extra bleed chance. If you don't like that, you could go down here and mess around with some of this stuff, but you're going to be kind of... I tried it out, kind of like a minion hybrid build. It was really like you'd be attacking, you'd use Forge Strike to get your global damage bonus, and then attack with Void Cleave, and you would consume all your stacks of armament just to summon forged weapons. You could, like, if you're using the Phantom Grips, you could go in a way different direction. I personally didn't like it, but there are options here in the build. You could do some sort of hybrid Void Cleave minion build with this. So tell me what you guys think about that. All right, let's get into the passive tree real quick. We're going to do a full 30 points into the Sentinel tree. 8 and 2, armor clad 5. The reason why we do this, 10% damage reduction from nearby enemies, 30% increased cooldown recovery speed for movement skills. This actually is pretty useful. You get mana back in case you don't get enough crits off with your Void Cleave. This is just a nice, well-rounded node just to get back some mana and health. And the health, like, well, I've been low health before and I started attacking. That 10% really actually kicks in real quick, especially when we're using something like Titanheart, where we have no inherent health regeneration. And Blade Master, 30% melee attack speed, just trying to attack a little bit faster, proc those ailments faster. Okay, so we dumped 13 points into Void Knight, 1 point into Void Corruption, 7 points into Abyssal Endurance, and 5 points into World Eater. This is a nice damage leech buff. You could do 1 more point here, but I'm going to show you what my plans are, because like I said, we are level 98. All right, Forge Guard. So I put 5 points into Weapons Master to get that 10% melee attack speed with a sword. Also gives us 5 strength. 1 point into Fresh from the Forge. I know it might be tempting to try and get the 5 points, but this penetration right here only works with Forge Strike and Smelter's Wrath, and we're not using Forge Strike as a damage indicator. And the plus, whatever melee fire damage, it's just not going to be very beneficial. So I put 1 point here to get over to Champion of the Forge, but we got to put some points elsewhere first. So I actually opted for health. You could take some points out of Guardian, right? You could take some points, lose some health, and put more into Smelter's Might, because that's actually where I was going to put my last 2 points when I hit level 100, was to get Smelter's Might and to get even more bleed chance. It's doubled with a two-handed weapon, and it also applies to minions. So if you take the 4 points from here, you put it down here, that's 7, 2 points, that's 9. You could take 1 point from Unflinching, assuming we got enough to get over, and who knows? Could be a thing. Put 5 points into Champion of the Forge, because you get critical multiplier per 2 strength with a two-handed weapon. So more strength, more critical strike multiplier. The increased critical strike chance, it's cool. You could put the extra 3 points. I think this node's slightly more valuable just for the raw melee critical strike chance. This is kind of a nice little universal bonus if you're doing like some sort of spear, throw, whatever. It's a two-handed increased critical strike chance. It is not melee or anything else. It's just increased critical strike chance with a two-hander. This is more specific. Like I said, I had 3 points in Smelter's Might. I was going to put 5. You could put more. Give it a shot. 5 points into Hammer and Anvil. I know this is kind of chintzy, but I wanted the armor shred chance, because if you notice, we don't have any armor shred on the build. And This gives it a 100% chance. Do you have to use this? No. No. If you have Armor Shred on your build, don't use this. Put this elsewhere. Put 6 points into Might because this is just free. 12% increase health and strength. 6 points into Duelist to get that 90% melee critical strike chance. This is an increased strike chance. This is not a base critical strike chance. This is an increased. 6 points into Lethal Strikes. This also gives us fire penetration per 5 strength. Works out very well. And we get 60% melee critical strike multiplier. 1 point in Flawless Defender. We get some armor with a shield. Well, we're not using a shield. Who cares? We just needed 1 point to get up to Walls of Solarum. 5% damage reduction. It's doubled if you have a shield. But it's a 5% damage reduction regardless. Obviously, if you have a shield with 50% block chance, it's double. 10% damage reduction. Nice. Infinite Bulwark. We just needed 3 points here. I mean, this is nice. Don't get me wrong. We just needed 3 points here, but this is what we really wanted. Less damage over time taken. Doubled if you've consumed a poison. Potion. I'm going to drink this poison. Yeah, if you have consumed a potion recently, you get 30% less damage over time taken. I have survived some dot build up because I drank a potion, got that 30% less damage over time taken, enough time for the what am I trying to say here, for the stacks to get off of me. So there you go. And then 8 points into Master of Arms for that nice sweet flat 16 strength with a 2-handed weapon. Guys, that is the build. I tried to be quick. It is certainly much quicker than the Paladin build, but I hope you guys like this. We're going to be moving on to Void Knight. I was about to say Forge Knight. Yeah, it was weird. We're going to be moving on to Void Knight next. I'm really excited about that one. It's going to take a lot of will. It's going to take a lot of strength to not just turn it into Void Cleaver Racing Strike. Because it's an option, right? It's just going to turn into Void Cleaver. Try not to go there. I think Forge Guard is the most successful use of the Master Yi build because I already know I'm going to start tinkering. I'm probably not even going to... The final... It won't even be a Master Yi build. The Void Knight version. It won't even be a Master Yi build. I won't be using Eternal Eclipse. I'll just end up going with Apathy's Maw. I'll be trying to stack. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts. I will do a Void Knight Master Yi build, though. It will be Master Yi at its core with Eternal Eclipse. And then I'll probably just release a new updated Void Cleaver Racing Strike build to go along with it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm Babbling Bike. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. I will be streaming Void Knight here real soon. You guys take care.